Hi, I'm Wright Thurston Sr. I started a couple of companies 45 years ago. One was International Success Group. I'm a professional speaker. I've done about nearly 4,000 presentations in 50 countries around the world. Oh, and I live in Sandy, Utah.
Okay, what experiences or people inspired you as a child or a young adult?
A lot of mentors. This isn't the case for everyone, but I was blessed with wonderful parents and grandparents that just unconditional love and encouraged me that I could do anything I put my mind to. But I had certain teachers along the way in school, in church, and of course as I got into the business world, I believe in mentoring a lot. I guess we'll talk about that later.
How did they shape your sense of purpose?
They made me realize that successful people are willing to do what unsuccessful people won't do. They'll go the extra mile, they'll be kind even when people are rude to them, and they'll persist until they get the results they want.
How did you get started in your current field or profession?
Some local Utah businessmen that had seminar companies had heard of what we did in our part-time with real estate up in Alaska. I'd been working for IBM up in Fairbanks, Alaska, but I'd also started investing in real estate in my part-time. And it had worked out so well, they gave me an opportunity to speak to a large crowd in Hong Kong back in 1984. And so the first one was terrible, I was awful, but that which we persist in doing becomes easier. So with time you learned how to present things better.
Were there any key moments or decisions that led you down this path?
Yes, I think so. I loved my experiences with IBM, a Fortune 500 company, greatly admired. The training was incredible, but I realized that every time I exceeded my quotas or got paid more than they wanted to pay me, they'd increase my quotas or they'd reduce the size of my territory. And I learned in kind of my mid-20s that I was never going to get financially independent working for someone else. So I always started doing things on the side to have a second and third source of income, and that's what got me into real estate investing initially.
What books have you written?
Oh, I've written 3. They're not, they're books I've written. They're published. They've been sold all over the world, but they're not necessarily in bookstores. One was on how in 13 months we bought 4 apartment buildings that made us financially independent and millionaires in our 20s. One is about property management, on managing those. And another one is of just values and principles that people need to have. Having good credit, knowing how to be a people person and work with others, things like that.
What are the core values that guide your decisions and actions?
Well, I think you need to be true to yourself, even if you're the only person that believes that way. Again, I loved my friends growing up, but my dad was a pilot in the Navy, so we moved every 2 years of my life, and I was in 8 different schools before college. And often I was the only person of my religious faith in my high school or in my class. And so all my friends had different values, but we respected one another's values. We loved one another in spite of the differences. And I think there just needs, in the world today, there needs to be more compromising and people coming together.
How do they align with your professional pursuits?
I can tell you that I've learned statistically that if I speak to 1,000 people, no matter what I do, there's always going to be 1 or 2% that just aren't interested. They may be reading a newspaper or talking on their cell phone right during a presentation. You can't let the 1 or 2% distract you from the 98% that really want to learn. So you stay focused and you don't let things irritate you. You become a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? A little more thick-skinned. Not that you can't learn from constructive criticism, but you don't let your whole attitude change because of one person. Oh, and I will add, I've learned over the years that if you're around really super negative people, they can drag you down and change your outlook for a day or a week. So I try not to associate with negative people if I can. That's not always possible.
Have there been any significant challenges or setbacks in your career or personal life?
Well, sure. I'll give you an example. Those properties that we bought up in Fairbanks, Alaska during the Alaskan pipeline days, they just changed our lives financially for the better. But after a while, when the pipeline slowed down, there were a lot more vacancies. What had been just a roaring success for a while, they kind of went through a dip. And what people have to realize is that Nothing lasts forever, and you don't change your game plan. You adapt, you be flexible. Some of the wealthiest people in the United States are the ones that did the best during the down times when everyone else was complaining. They saw the opportunity to stay positive, to remain focused, and to continue working hard.
How did you overcome them, and what did you learn from those experiences?
There's a phrase that comes to mind. I mentioned about moving every 2 years. I like to teach my clients, both at seminars and at Fortune 500 companies, that if a person is willing to do for 12 to 24 months what other people aren't willing to do, they can spend the rest of their lives doing things other people can't afford to do. You just can't try something for a couple of weeks or a month and it doesn't work out and you stop and say, oh, that's no good. You've got to be persistent and consistent. You've got to hang in there sometimes for longer than 12 months. But I have found myself, and for so many countless people I know, if they'll just give it their very best, be persistent, hang in there, that good things do come.
What drives you to pursue your work or personal goals?
I love attending seminars and workshops. I love reading. All my life I've tried to read on the various topics that I was interested in. So I credit a lot of different men and women with being mentors. And what's kind of exciting is a lot of the people whose books I've read, I've now had a chance not only to meet, but to work with and to vacation with, and my mentors have become my closest friends. So I attribute my success not only to encouraging family, but to lots of mentors in lots of different fields that just said, you can do it, and here's how we did it, and you can do the same thing. And I believe that, and I've tried to teach that to my clients as well.
What keeps you motivated even during a difficult time?
As long as you're doing correct principles, as long as you're not giving into the temptation to cut corners or be less than honest. Sometimes people, when they get in a survival mode, they start, behaving differently, acting differently. That isn't the correct course of action. That's the time when you need to be resolved in your attitude and just say, all right, I'm going to do everything that I can. I'm going to give it everything I've got, so I won't have any regrets at the end of the day, no matter how it works out. But the key is sticking at something longer than most people will.
How did you approach problem solving and innovation in your work and personal life?
I liken professional speaking to being married. I'm married to a wonderful person. This year we'll celebrate our 48th wedding anniversary. But in the early years, you're learning and you're adapting to being with someone else and what they like to do and so forth. It was the same way with professional speaking. I mentioned I've given close to 4,000 presentations. Well, I've got to tell you, the first couple dozen were terrible. And you watch them, you learn from them. Then they started getting a little bit better. And now I've reached the point where my presentations almost at times can be memorized. And all I have to do is worry about connecting with the audience and making sure they're understanding.
What methods or tools do you use to generate new ideas?
Again, I would say that I'm a voracious reader, but I'll rotate it. It's not always business books. I sometimes will read a fun fiction book. I like biographies of people. I'll read church books. I like to have a balance. But I find that, and I also like I've got a big collection of books that are like 80 to 100 years old. And I like to look at what people were doing to be successful back then and then adapt it and apply it to today, because the correct principles tend to be true no matter whether it's 50 years ago or 50 years in the future.
How have your relationships and collaborations with others impacted your sense of purpose and career trajectory?
I believe in something called the team concept. And if you take that word team, T-E-A-M, it stands for together everyone achieves more. So I believe in team building. I believe in finding the best qualified people. I like hiring people that are a lot smarter than I am. And then I just get out of their way and let them do what they're good at doing. When you network, when you build these great associations, it allows you to springboard from one opportunity. So, for example, after having real estate be successful, it enabled us to start another company in another area, and then to use that as a springboard with mentors to get into different areas. And at one point, we actually got the number of monthly income streams we had up to about 10. And so when something like the pandemic hits, 7 or 8 of those might disappear temporarily, but you've got some others in place generating income, and that's what I try to teach my clients, is multiple streams of income.
How do you define success?
That's a good question. I think it's being able to sleep well at night. Even if your mind is racing with ideas, if you end the day knowing that you've tried to be kind, you've tried to uplift and let other people feel loved and appreciated. I don't think it's just financially. Obviously, financial success helps, but a lot of the most successful people I know don't have a lot of money, but they've got a good, strong marriage, and their kids are being raised and doing the right things, and I think that's the real definition of success.
Have there been any moments in your career or personal life that you considered a success?
Sure. I mean, sometimes we've had success doing service and volunteer work in different parts of the world. We've had success in business, in speaking. It only happened once, but one time in Orlando, Florida, I gave a 2-hour presentation, and when I was finished, the 400 people in attendance bought over $1 million worth of product at the back of the room. But you see, that's a financial thing, and sometimes the real happiness comes from seeing someone you've taught being successful, or someone that's down and out. You've helped lift them and elevate them out of their situation. Oh, yes, you've got to learn from them. I love this saying that everything we want in life is just outside our comfort zone. Too many people aren't willing to do anything that's uncomfortable. They're not willing to venture out. And they say the most successful people have failed, and failed often, numerous times, but they learn from their mistakes, they bounce back, and they get better each time.
What are your future aspirations or goals?
Well, I'm at the time in life where I want to focus less on business. I'll always be there for clients, but I want to focus on my children and my grandchildren. I've had a chance to serve 3 volunteer missions for my church. I'd like to go on a 4th one with my wife. We'd like to contribute and give back, because you work hard for a certain number of years, but you can't be working until the day you die, because you're going to have regrets about not doing things with your loved ones. You need to create those memories while you can and you're healthy.
How do they align with your sense of purpose and personal values?
Well, someone once taught me that the truth is good enough, and I know it's a real temptation sometimes for people to embellish or twist the truth or say something, but no, I think you have to, again, it goes back to my parents and grandparents. They taught me the most important thing was your reputation, and to be as honest as you can and try to do things with integrity, and I think ultimately you can tell if people are doing that or not.
What do you hope to leave behind as your legacy?
Nothing financially. I'd like the legacy to be that we helped a lot of people improve their own lives or feel better about themselves. I've got this saying that I think every person that we interact with, they should leave us feeling loved and appreciated, no matter what the situation. Even if there's been a disagreement or argument, you can end it on a good, positive note. And more than anything, I just want my family and my friends to know how much I've loved them and appreciated them, and what a difference they've made in my life.
How do you want to be remembered by others?
Just as someone that was a good friend, a good mentor, someone who was truthful with them, but someone who stuck by them even when they were having challenges themselves.